Hello everyone, Mariusz Repczynski here with Cloud Data Labs, and in this video we're going to build a pipeline in Azure Synapse Studio that moves data using copy data activity. Stay tuned. To follow along with this tutorial, you will need Azure Synapse Workspace. If you haven't got one, don't worry, I will include links somewhere here to one of my videos where I explain step by step how to create one. Also, in the standard scenario, we would use copy data activity to move data between two different data sources. For example, moving data from SQL Server or any other source system into your data lake. However, to simplify the process, we will use the primary data lake in Azure Synapse Workspace. This is because it's already been set up and we do not need to provision any additional resources. Now, if you find value in this video, please consider liking and subscribing for more tutorials like this. Now let's get started. As you can see, we are currently in Azure Synapse Workspace. Good place to start is by looking at the data that will be moving. To do that, in the left side menu, let's navigate to Data. Here we're going to click on Linked and expand Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. Here you can find all your data lakes, but the one we're interested in is the primary one. If we expand it further, you will see your containers, and as you can see, we've got a primary container. Now this data lake and container were provisioned when creating your Synapse workspace. As you can see, inside our primary container, I have created two folders, one called source and another called sync. The source folder contains the file that will be moving to the sync folder. Now let's open source folder, and as you can see, inside we've got dbo employees.csv file. We can right click and preview it to see the content, but the content is not that important. In fact, you can upload any CSV file into your data lake and it will work just fine for what we want to do. The important bit is that now we create a pipeline to copy this file into our sync folder. To create the pipeline, we need to navigate to Integrate in the left-hand menu. Then click on Add New Resource and select Pipeline from the drop-down. Next, let's give our pipeline a meaningful name. Now from the Activities pane, under Move or Transform section, let's drag Copy Activity into the canvas. In the general properties of our copy data activity, we can change its name, add some description if we want to, set up the timeout. By default, it's 12 hours. Set retries and the interval between them. You also have some options for secure output and secure input. If enabled, it will not capture your activities, output or input in the logging. But for this exercise, we will leave all these settings as default. Now let's move on to the next tab, which is Source. As you can see, here we have drop-down menu where you can select an existing dataset or create a new one. For this exercise, we'll create a new dataset. As we discussed earlier, we will be copying the data from Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. So this is the dataset type that we need to select. So let's scroll down and find it. Next, we need to choose the file format. For us, this is CSV. And for the link service, we're going to select the default one for our data lake. Now, to be able to explore our data lake and select the file, we need to enable interactive authoring. After interactive authoring has been enabled, we can start browsing the file system. Let's click on the folder icon. This will load up the available containers. Click on the metadata, where you will see our folder structure. Now we're going to select our source folder and the file we want to move, and click OK. Now let's give our dataset some meaningful name and press OK to confirm the changes. Now, as you can see, we've got some more options in our source properties. You can do some filtering on the files, last modified date. You can do wildcards on the paths. There are a lot of properties to consider. And those properties will vary dependent on the dataset type. So feel free to explore the documentation if you want to dig a little bit deeper. Now we can also preview our dataset. And as you can see, it did not pick up our headers. So let's fix that by going to open our dataset, and in the connection properties, we're going to scroll down and change the first row as header to be enabled. Now let's commit the changes and head back to our copy data activity and try the preview again. And as you can see, our headers are now in the right place. Next, we can move on to the sync properties. Here we need to repeat the process and set up new dataset as well. However, the destination path of this folder will be sync instead. So let's click new to start the process. The type of this dataset will be Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 again. However, this time for the file format, we can select Parquet. Let's give it a name. And select the link service. And this will be exactly the same as before. Now, as you can see, the interactive authoring is already enabled. So you can go ahead straight away and explore our data lake. Here we're going to again select metadata container. However, this time the target folder will be sync. So let's press OK. Now, as you probably notice, we did not provide the file name. But that's okay because we have already defined that at the source. So now we can press OK. So now that we've got our copy data activity all set, all is left to do is to test if it's working. And to do that, we're going to click debug to run the pipeline. And as you can see, our copy activity has ended successfully. Now we can investigate the output, where we can see the details of the activity run. By clicking on the glasses icon, we can see that we read one file and written one as well. As well as we can see that the count of rows is matching as well. Now let's go and quickly check if the file is there in the sync folder. And as you can see, the file is there as expected. And that's it for today's tutorial. Now you can start building Azure Synapse pipelines using copy data activity to move data. I hope this video was helpful to you, and if you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. If you find value in this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.